4 local community land trusts who are at different stages of developing a scheme to meet the needs of local people in housing need. They're going to each give a brief sort of talk, come presentation, whatever, about where they're at, who they are, and how they're doing it. And then there will be an opportunity for us to open it out for and particularly people who might think of doing this themselves, and there's 1 or 2 in the room who are, and for or any other interesting questions that you may have. So I'm going to perhaps I should just start. Well, I'll say we've got people here from South Brent, which is John. Nick is here from Harberton and Harbertonford Community Land Trust. Nicola is from Transition Homes Community Land Trust, and this crew, Hugo, Harry, Jeff, and Richard, are from Broadhempston Community Land Trust. I'm going to ask John to start, because I know he's going to be able to talk a little bit about what community land trusts are generally, as well as saying us a little bit about where they are in South Brent. So thank you very much.
I'm going to stand up, otherwise I'm just going to talk to these 2 people. So I'm going to look over you all. As Eric said, I've been asked to talk today about our experiences in South Brent. I'm sure there'll be plenty of talk today about global warming, eco-construction, community action, and the housing crisis. These are all the topics that I was thinking about when I first got involved in a CLT. I rang a friend of mine who's an architect and said, I want to build a house suitable for my family needs, but I can't afford a 4-bedroom house on the open market. What are the options? And he said to me, get in touch with the National Community Land Trust Network and have a word with Hugo, who happened to be working with my architect friend at the time. So I don't know if you guys know South Brent, but there's a very strong organisation called Sustainable South Brent. A bit like Transition Homes, they've got the wind turbine up at Rattery. They do a lot of informative stuff about retrofitting older homes, LED lights, all that sort of stuff. I went and spoke to them and said, look, as Sustainable South Brent, the important thing in your terminology is sustainability. But without local people remaining in that community, the community is no longer sustainable. And they said, we missed a trick there somewhat. And that's how South Brent CLT was created, to deliver a community need-based development, and its ethos was very much embedded in the environmentally construction and self-build, predominantly to keep costs down and empower those people that were going to be involved in this. It's an alternative approach and a reaction to high-density developer-led housing. Houses should be homes for the many, not speculative investments for the few. There is no justification for a compact, high-density home other than profit. And as a non-profit community interest company, a CLT immediately takes out that 25% that a developer will walk away with. We did find a landowner who was very willing to sell us some land. However, after a couple of years of promises and numerous letters to solicitors, he unfortunately became quite ill and his son took charge. And his son didn't really get the concept of a community land trust and pulled the plug. A CLT home isn't a conventional affordable home, as defined by developers. Teachers, nurses, core workers, and the guy working in the car at 10 o'clock on a wet Tuesday night can't afford a house in the town or village they grew up in because of a broken market. 20% below open market value is still unaffordable when a 3-bedroom house is £350,000. But communities will die unless there is a sea change. It'll become a playground for people who see houses and as an investment opportunity rather than a home. So, for a CLT to work, you need to work tirelessly to try and get that message out there, as to what cost we have found. Believe in your project. You will need resilience, and there will be disappointments and problems to overcome. At times, that goal may seem unreachable. However, there are people out there, and in this room today, who woke up this morning in a house that they helped build. Prior to losing the land, the CLT, the National Park and the architects had put together a project with all the surveys and reports ready for planning submission. We had site drawings, house designs. Although much of that work is lost, we still have the concepts and the designs that we can transpose to a new site. Similar to Broadhempston and to Harberton, part of the design included open space for the wider community to be involved in, with village orchard and much needed allotments. A small community building to be used as a site office and workshop during the construction phase could then become an education facility for kids from the village school to come along and learn about eco-design, zero carbon building, low impact living and the like. All of this was still possible, is still possible, because we're a member of the National Community Land Trust Network. A fantastic community of people willing to give their time, share knowledge and support each other for the greater goal. It was the CLT network who lobbied the government to grant the 60 million for community-led affordable housing, of which Southampton District Council have been awarded 1.8 million, as many of us know. They've recently joined with the Co-Housing Network and are a great force for change. From a co-op bakery at Anfield and the award-winning Gamby Street redevelopment in Liverpool to St Anne's Hospital in Harringay, I think it is, where they're looking at building 800 affordable houses on an old hospital site, to Bristol Community Land Trust, to St Mimber in Cornwall building affordable houses in Rock. CLTs are delivering or planning to deliver thousands of affordable homes and jobs for their community across the whole of the UK. So, to close, we at South Brands are now a key stakeholder in delivering affordable housing in South Brands as part of their new 5-year parish plan. We've talked to the community and the council to understand what's wanted and to get that message out there by running stalls at street fairs, even fielding a team in the Skittles League, although we were pretty rubbish. After losing the last site, we immediately put our feelers out, and in the last few weeks we've started serious and fast-moving talks with the land agents over a new site, so things are looking up. So to close, so what lessons have we learned and what advice can I give to you guys? Identify the local need, talk to your councillors, talk to your community and form a legally structured CIC or similar. Get the directors appointed, identify your goals and work tirelessly towards achieving them. Legally secure the land would be the big one. Make friends with your planning and development officers. There are grants out there from the CLT network to help with costs for option agreements. And once you have a group, listen to what they want to see and deliver and formulate a plan. Be strong and resilient. Put on an iron shirt because you will meet plenty of challenges. Although there are companies out there forming all the time to support this growing movement, it's a lot of work. I think something that came to mind just this morning, I think Kipling sums it rather well. If you can keep your head up when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, you will make a fine CLT member. Read the rest of the poem because all the way through there are key bits that fit with that as well. Thank you very much.
I'm going to stand up.
It's quite imposing, isn't it?
Hi, I've been with the Harberton Community Land Trust for about 5 years, and developing this has felt a little bit like wading through tree wood, to be honest. that and going round and round in circles in truth as well. If I had any advice to anyone, one is get plenty of funding, grab as much money as you can out there, because it's amazing how much things cost, especially when you get to the planning stage, which is where we're at. So I brought, sorry, it's a little you can have a look later. Okay, that's our site. It's got 10 CLT houses on it. It's being built under the South Hams Village Housing Initiative. What that did for us is it got us the land cheaply, basically. The landowner, in return for selling his land at much below market cost, gets the opportunity to build a house at market rate. As it happens, the person that has sold us the land, he actually wanted that house for his daughters to stay in the village. So, that's one of the reasons why we've done this, is we've got a lot of people who, even during the 5-year process, have been forced out of the village, usually because they're in rented accommodation that ends up being sold, something like that. We've got a whole range of people. We've got, that's the other thing, during the 5 years we've had plenty of, we've had births, marriages, we did have one death. So, it does show you how resilient you have to be as a CLT. People will come and go, but the big thing is, there's a big demand out there for affordable housing. And I was asked, how affordable is affordable? Okay. The quick answer is, it depends what you want. We've got one lady who will rent. Okay, she will rent from the CLT. Having said that, she will still earn, because we're not self-builders, we're self-finishers. We're going to put up timber-framed constructions to weather tight, and then the people involved are going to finish those. They'll do the outside rendering, the timber cladding, and they'll do the internals much as we can. Well, obviously we can't do second fix electrics, we haven't got an electrician yet. But she will still, even though she's renting, she'll still earn 15% of her property through the sweat equity. And that's a big thing as well for some of the people going for mortgages as well, because that essentially gives them their deposit if they need it. And we're going to have some people who will be shared ownership, and we'll have some people who will buy outright. There's a whole mixture of them. The size of properties, that's the other thing. I think all of your ones are the same size, are they? Yeah. Our ones aren't, I'm afraid. We've got 4-bedroom properties, 3-bedroom properties, 2-bedroom, and we have a bungalow. Okay. The brief for the architect for the bungalow, by the way, it's a lady called Sheila, and she said, I only really need 1 bedroom, but I'll have 2 because my grandson comes to stay. But what I really need is a big lounge because I run yoga classes. So, the architects work, although the properties look very similar, the architects work with each individual family to find out what their family needs are. And that's about it. And we're at the planning stage at the moment. It's just due to go in. That thing I had there is the 3D rendering, which we've been waiting for. Now we can shell out £5,000 to pay for planning. Yes.
So you haven't actually been able to cost the properties yet, right?
We do have initial costings between 120 and 160, depending on the size and the spec. What we're doing is we're having some things we're saying this is the standard. So, for example, bathrooms and kitchens, we're going to buy from the same supplier, so we get the economies of scale. But we asked everybody what they wanted to do that was outside the spec. Almost to a person, everyone wants a wood burner. I don't think they quite realise. I don't think anyone's ever lived in a passive house, standard home. Okay, they're going to be sitting there with the windows open and they don't care, I think. But that's what they wanted, but they'll pay for that on top. Okay, so what we're giving them is a basic units, and then if they want extras, then that's up to them to fund that, because we want to keep them affordable in perpetuity. That's one other quick thing before we finish. Some of you may know there's a review going on about leasehold properties at the moment. I wrote to Sarah Woolston to get her to talk to Sammy Javid, who's the minister. The reply we got back was rubbish. He sent a letter that basically said, "Oh well, if you're buying a house, you need to talk to a solicitor." Anyway, and she recognised that. She wrote me that saying, "Terribly sorry, this is a bunch of hooey." If you can get some of the other CLTs also to contact me, I'll take it up with you personally. And one of the problems, by the way, if you don't realise it, he's reviewing this because they say that these aggressive leasehold owners who are just pushing ground rents up, that sort of thing. Obviously, CLTs actually own the leasehold, so there's no advantage in us doing that. I'm getting really jealous of all these nice ringtones. What he's doing is, and I went through the review, and there are certain categories of people, including councils, who are exempt from this review. So I wrote just to ask, could they add CLTs to that as well? So if you guys could do that as well, that would be great.
I think Cassandra Harrison at the CLT Network has also been lobbying.
Oh, everyone has.
Yeah.
But I can tell you now, from being on a council, the more individuals who write, the better it is. The worst thing you can do is get a petition up, because that's seen as one voice.
Can I just ask how much did the land cost?
£9,500 per plot.
Very good.
And do you know roughly? I don't know. I'm out of touch with how much a commercial development pays. But it's at least, yeah. So it's we're very grateful to. I mean, he's a farmer, and he probably would have wanted to build on it. He never would have been able to if it hadn't been for the Village Housing Initiative. So we have to say thank you to South Hams for that. I know lots of people don't always say nice things about South Hams, but that was a good thing they did with that scheme. Any other questions?
More questions after just as well. So let's hear questions as soon as otherwise we get squeezed in.
Can you give me a 5-minute heads up, because otherwise I'll just keep prattling. I'm Nicola, and I'm the coordinator for Transition Home CLT. We're based here in Totnes. Great bit of information already from these guys on what CLTs are, and we've all got similarities, but we've also got differences. So Transition Homes, we're not a self-build scheme, and the group that started the CLT are also not building houses. We're not building houses for ourselves. So we recognise that there's very high level of housing need in Totnes and Dartington, and we wanted to build affordable housing for local people who are in housing need. And the other key part of our ethos, and something that John talked about, is sustainability in housing. So, the team were really frustrated that a lot of the development going on in Totnes is kind of very bog standard, and it meets building regs, but we feel that sets a very low bar for sustainability in housing, and there's a lot more that you can do over and above that. So those are the kind of two strands of our ethos, is the affordability and sustainability. And we've got a site, we call it Clay Park, it's next to Clay Lane in Dartington, and we paid similar, about 10 grand per plot, and we secured that in 2013. That was one of the first real challenges that we had, was finding land, because there's just not a lot of land available in Totnes. In Dartington, there are two major landowners, Dartington Hall Trust, obviously, for Dartington, Duke of Somerset on the inside of Totnes, and we were just very lucky, actually, that a farmer just had a field, and he'd been grazing cattle there and he didn't want it anymore, and he put it on the market. So we secured that in 2013, and only then really, can all the design work and everything start, so that's what we've been doing. Submitted planning in December of 2015, and we are nearly there. We did get planning permission in February, subject to the Section 106 being signed. That's the legal agreement that we have with the council. And because they hadn't done a scheme quite like this before, the Section 106 has taken quite a lot of negotiating back and forth, and then, you know, with both councils, Southampton and DCC, and us and our funders going, you know, all the solicitors are involved, and it's taken quite a while, but we are very, very close to getting official planning permission, which is great. So in the meantime, we're kind of doing all the detailed design work, structural and civil engineers are involved, and we're looking at raising finance and appointing a contractor, and hoping to start in May of next year. And then it's about a 2-year, just less than 2-year build period. So we should be finished sort of 2019, early 2020. And we've got 27 homes. We were aiming for 100% affordable, but the numbers just didn't stack up. So we've ended up with 8 market houses to cross-subsidise, so 70% affordable overall. And actually, I think, you know, initially we were a bit disappointed that we couldn't achieve 100% affordable housing. But it's nice to have some market housing because it gives you a more mixed, kind of diverse community. And of the 19 affordable, there's shared ownership and affordable rental. I've already alluded to, you know, what is affordable. You know, an 80% market, definitely not affordable unless, you know, that's very expensive. So our affordable rents are capped at the local housing allowance. So if anyone is in need of benefits, they can pay for their rent from their benefits. It's not coming out of their own pocket. So that means that they're about 65 to 70% of the market. And then for the shared ownership, most shared ownership schemes that you see go on the market, they sell at a fixed percentage, so you can buy like 50%. But for our ones, you can buy in at a range from 25 up to 75, so, you know, it suits people with a range of incomes. What else have we got? So the site is quite large, it's 7 acres, and we're not developing the whole site. If it was a kind of conventional developer, they'd maybe put, 60 homes there, 60 or 70 homes. And we're doing 27, so we're leaving the whole top section of the site agricultural. So we'll have allotments, we'll have community orchard, wildflower meadow, and then within the development as well, we've got a community building and what we're calling a village green, so open space outside the community building with play area. So, you know, community facilities, you know, it's not just housing. You know, a lot of the developments that are going up at the moment, and the Meadowside development that's opposite where we are, they have no outdoor space. There is nothing there, they have no facilities. It's just housing. And, you know, we think for a sustainable community, you know, a resilient social sort of community, you know, you need that, and you need to encourage, you know, connectedness within the community, and I think that's why people are so interested in our site and have signed up. You know, it's not just the sustainability, it's the community aspect of it too. And, you know, as I said, sustainability of buildings is really important for us, so we're looking at our building materials. One thing that's really not taken into account is the embodied energy of building materials, so that's the energy required to manufacture and transport a product. So if it's like a petroleum-based product, obviously that's got high embodied energy, and if you're transporting materials a long way, there's carbon footprint there too. So what we're focusing on is, wherever possible, locally sourced, sustainably managed natural materials. So we're doing timber frame with straw bale insulation, timber clad, lime plaster on the inside. So those are local and low embodied energy materials, which, you know, at the end of their lifetime, and obviously we expect the houses to stand for, you know, decades, if not hundreds of years, they can all just go back to the earth. They're effectively all compostable and will biodegrade. We've got renewable energy systems, and we've also got initiatives around green travel, how to incentivise people to use their private cars less, to share. Wherever possible, to cycle, so we're putting in a bit of a cycleway extension as well along the A385 to connect to the existing NC2 cycle path. So, you know, just trying to look at all aspects really of sustainability, you know, travel, food, energy, embodied energy, and the sustainability of the community itself as well. So we haven't allocated any of the houses yet, so if you or anyone you know is interested in buying or is in need of affordable housing, just register with us, and we'll keep you posted when we start the allocations process, which will be next year. My list of key areas. I could just prattle on for hours. There's a lot more in my head, and we've got a stall outside as well, so, you know, I'm here for the rest of the day, so come and talk to us.
just wondered about the security of tenure in relation to renting.
Yeah. So I think historically, you could get lifetime tenancies, and most of the social housing now, they've done away with that. We could go with lifetime tenancies. We still haven't sorted out the leases and the tenancy forms just yet. It's something that we need to start looking at now. But they will be long tenancies. Because people don't want, people don't want to move. They want it to be their home.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how much are the houses costing, and how are you raising the money to build them?
The houses are fairly expensive, actually. The whole development's fairly expensive. Because I said we're not developing the whole site, we're not getting the same economies of scale, and the infrastructure costs are then divided by 27 houses instead of, say, by 60 houses. And there are some challenges with our site. There's only one access point off the road. It's a slope, and so there's road costs and all of that. So it's not as cheap as it could be, and we're not self-building, so that's not super cheap as well. The whole scheme is about £5.5 million, so it's a couple of £100,000 on average per property. And we've got 1, 2, 3 and 4 bed houses, and they are all terraced as well. So finance, to date we've been very lucky with getting grant funding, and that's paid for all the redevelopment work that we've done to date. And we're just in the process of getting ready to draw down another grant from South Hams District Council for the detailed design work that we're doing. But then financing the actual build, we're talking to the bigger, more ethical lenders like Triodos Bank, Ecology Building Society, Charity Bank, and several of them are interested in principle, and we'll also be going out for social investment as well, because they'll only lend 70%. And obviously it's our first development, we don't have money in the bank, we don't have any contributions, so we'll be securing social investment on the remaining 30%.
What is social investment?
It is what it sort of says on the tin, it's investment but with a social purpose.
From individuals?
Not usually from institutions, so Big Issue Invest would be one, for example. CAF, the Charities Aid Foundation, they lend money, but they want to lend to socially responsible sort of causes.
And then we use that as the 30%.
We use that as the 30%. So so at the moment a large amount of the work that I'm doing is around finance and talking to Triodos and trying to get the funding package
And
together.
they all want interest, I suppose.
Yeah. Triodos are offering very favourable terms, though, generally. Interest rates are low at the moment, which is great, but they're also offering other incentives, because they recognise, when we're borrowing a lot of money, and we're repaying it through our rents, and the rents are obviously low because they're affordable rents, so it's quite hard to make it stack up, but they can offer a 10-year interest-only period on 60% of the finance, so that those first few years when your cash flow is tightest, they're helping because they recognise that that's an issue. And they've funded other CLTs already. They're working with Russ in London, and other CLTs as well.
So when you sell the non-affordable houses, you pay something?
Exactly, yeah.
So is there are you saying the whole scheme will be paid off in 10 years?
No, 35.
35?
35, yeah. So 10 years initial period of interest only we pay. And then another 25, standard 25-year mortgage on top of that. Yeah. So the market housing and the sales from the shared ownership, obviously that will go back to repaying the development loan, and then there's a component of long-term loan.
So how did you set the 35-year thing? Is that standard thing, or? 25
would be normal, but as Triodos sort of offered this 10-year interest-only period, then it's extended the whole loan period to the short.
Just pause there, because we've got time for more questions at the end, so let's
Thanks very much.
move on to just about Broadhempston.
Probably a bit of I'm Harriet, and I'm from Broadhempston Community Land Trust. So some of you might know about Broadhempston Community Land Trust already. So last October we completed 6 houses, and there are self-build eco houses. We started our journey back in 2012, and this started with just some meetings in the local hall where there's a group of people who needed housing in Broadhempston because it's a very affluent area, housing prices are very high. We couldn't afford to live there, but we were all locals who'd been there for a considerable length of time. So we we started a meeting and we formed a community land trust in 2012, and then once we formed a community land trust, we started looking for land. We were very lucky that we had a landowner locally who wanted to try and support social housing. It was a greenfield site, but because it was for affordable housing for local people, it's considered to be a rural exemption site. So we secured the site and we got an option agreement on the land, and then we submitted a planning application for 6 houses, and this was working in part with the Land Society, which Erica used to be involved with. And they helped us obtain planning permission for 6 self-built eco-properties on a near 2-acre site. So the houses form a crescent, and in front of them there's a communal play area and a communal orchard. So we obtained planning permission for the site in 2014. In order to fund that process of getting planning permission, we had a pre-development loan from an organisation called CAF Venturesome. So they gave us their initial funding. And then once we got planning permission, we then approached other finance companies, and we eventually got the full funding after probably a year's hard work, would you say, Richard? From residents, who then they set up the funding for the whole amount of the construction period. So once we'd secured that funding, that then enabled us to kickstart the process of purchasing the land and begin construction. So we purchased the land in October 2015, and then we started building, or started doing first groundworks and making the road in January 2016, yeah, in January 2016. So we're, anyway. Basically, it was a very long process. It's such a tiring, long process. You start to think what happened when, and you can't really remember. It all just becomes a huge blur. So there's six families that self-built all 6 houses. So we employed a contractor to help us do the groundworks, but we also assisted with that groundworks process. So we helped lay the beam and block foundation. We then employed another contractor to do the timber frames. Do you want to talk a bit about the design?
Yeah.
Or talk about the building process?
Yeah, so there's only 2 types of houses to keep things simple, a 3-bed and a 4-bed, but they're all pretty much identical designs in terms of the construction and the layout. A door change here and there to change and add a bedroom or not. But yeah, so they have the beam and block floor, and then a lightweight timber frame, which is made up of conventional stud work, which is really quick to put up. Comes in panels on a lorry and nailed together. Each house only takes a few days to have its sort of skeleton put together. And then once it's made pretty much watertight by breathable membrane fabric, keeps water out, then you can just start building up all those layers of roofing and cladding and all the rest of it, fill in the windows, and then you've got a dry house, and then we insulated it with straw, so the straw bales get put on platforms and get strapped to the timber frame, and then eventually they get plastered, which we needed help with. That was a big process. So yeah, I think feedback from experience was we tried to take on a lot, because it was always the nature of the project to do self-build, so we thought, well, we did save money, but at the same time it is an awful lot of work insulating a really ecological, well-insulated house. I mean, the roofs have that much insulation in them, and when you have 6 houses to do and you're using, we couldn't afford sheet wall in the end, and we used rock wool, which is nasty stuff. It's got a lot of embodied energy. So it's something to bear in mind if you're going to do a project, is be realistic and but with the amount of work that you can do, and spare your health and energy, and use maybe reserve money in the budget for getting contractors in to maybe pump in insulation. You can use recycled newspaper. It just pumps in enough fluffy thing.
I think you also always have to weigh up time versus money, and sometimes it seems like you're going to be really cost saving by using self-builders to do something, because then you're not paying for labour, but then the time that takes also is very costly. And for us, you know, when you have a big loan taken out and you pay high interest during the high risk period during construction, so every month that takes longer, the more interest that you have to pay. And so you have to account that into your budget and into your cash flow. So then actually you think, is this making financial sense that we're spending all this time self-building, or actually should we just get a lot of work? And we tried to kind of increase some workload by getting volunteers in to try and help us. And then again, that's not always a quick process, getting volunteers on site, because you've got a lot of people, maybe they haven't used tools before, someone then has to dedicate that time to teaching them, to show them how to do a job, and actually that might, in that day, that one person might have achieved way more than when showing volunteers to do it. So you've always got to try and balance and weigh things up, especially around the finance. I think probably we also, when you have a CLT, I think it's easy to forget about all the admin of running the project. So dealing with all the invoices, dealing with all the ordering of materials, dealing with talking to the lenders, dealing with talking to the planners, dealing with talking to the service companies, so power and water, getting services on site. We sort of tried to get around that, whereas Jeff, who's here, we paid him to be our site manager. So Jeff is also a self-builder, he's also a resident, but we paid him to be our site manager on site. So he was there all the time coordinating when different contractors were coming in. This might be in other projects, it'd probably be someone like their project manager that you pay, but we didn't have that within our budget. So we paid Jeff to do that, and then Hugo also took a year off work, so that he was there on site all the time, and him and Jeff were always working together and help coordinating what jobs needed to be done at the weekend by which people. So I think it's great doing CLT housing, and it's brilliant because it's a real bottom-up approach and you're providing housing for your community, but it's also thinking it's a really hard process and it takes a long time and a lot of energy, and you're just on the verge of madness when you finish. But then it's worth it, because we've got 6 beautiful homes that we love. We've got a communal play area that we got grant funding from the National Lottery, and we've got a communal orchard. So I think what we've created is wonderful. The journey was arduous.
Thank you all very much indeed. That's fantastic. Right, so some questions.
Two questions. One was about the affordability and perpetuity, how that works, and the other was just to find out about this Southam's village housing initiative.
Yeah, the reason that we're keen on being leasehold is that that's one of the ways that can help you not have an asset on the sea. It's been done everywhere else. You guys have done it, I assume, as well. Have an asset block on the thing, so it's just, it's not beyond the wit of man, it can be done, it's just the government trying to make it more difficult.
As the model we're looking at, and it may well be very similar to Broadhempston's, is that the CLT would retain freehold of the whole site and sell off 70, 80%, whatever it equates to, as the leasehold. So you get a 900-year lease on 70%, which means you can only ever sell 70% of the house, which means it's automatically 30% below market value.
So that's the same with us. So the CLT retain 25% of the value of each property, so they can't be sold they're restricted to who they can be sold to, because there's an allocation policy anyway, so they can't be sold on the open market. And then as someone who pays rent or who occupies the house, you can own up to 75%, but from building the house you've got 25% sweat equity.
And you also asked about village housing
Village
initiative.
housing initiative, just to know what it does.
If you go on the Southam's website and put Village Housing Initiative into the search bit, it brings up, there's a whole PDF of it. But basically, it's the idea is they're exception sites, so rather like Broadhempston, because obviously we're out in not even nowhere, but certainly we're in the countryside, and they wouldn't normally have got planning permission for that field. So it helps you do that. It also lays down the rules about how much you pay for the plot. It gives, as I say, the landowner a market value house which you can keep, sell, whatever he wants to do with it. One thing I forgot to mention is it also gives the CLT a market value house that we can do the same with as well. So that will help fund rather like jealous they've got. How many have you got? 7?
8.
8. You see.
Don't be jealous, it's all right. Make it financially viable.
Yeah, that's one of the things, by the way, that the VHI recognises. It actually talks about 10 plus houses. The interesting thing, because it's very difficult to be financially viable with less than 10 houses. As soon as we went to the planners, the first thing they said, well, you could get 6 houses in here. And we said, no, you can't, because we can't do it. And make them affordable. We could do it if they were market value houses easily. That's what the VHI has to say, is that the Southam's initiative.
Southam's have got 1.6 million, haven't they, this year for 1.8 million for community-led housing. I don't actually know what they're doing as well.
They have a paper which they've agreed, which lays out how the money's allocated.
And you presumably got your pre-development planning presumably comes out at that point, is it?
Ours was supposed to come from commuted payments from other developments.
Oh right, okay.
That's where the grant was supposed to come. And then we're going for additional funding from this new pot.
Yeah.
We don't believe that they've parted with any of it yet.
Has anyone had it?
No, we don't think they've spent any. They've had it since March. And believe me, we're all trying very hard to get some money out of them.
They have appointed somebody. Don't forget.
Yeah.
So that's cost money.
They have to spend it to get the next load of money.
They've got to spend a proportion of it, a large proportion of it, to get the next drawdown in April, and the person who shall remain unnamed has identified projects that he wants to spend the money on, and he's informed, from my understanding, he's informed the government, because he had to inform the government what he was going to spend it on. So he's identified half a dozen projects that he wants to spend money on. So the clock is ticking for Southam's to actually spend it on those groups. I mean, when we lost our land, they contacted the landowner and said, would it make a difference if we bought the land rather than the CLT, if it's the CLT you don't trust or understand? So the money is there, the money does need to be spent. And as we move into winter, the spring deadline is going to become more and more significant to how they use it. So it may be very beneficial for all three of us.
Guys, I've started up at Gabriel CLT. We've just put forward to become a legally registered CLT. 500 quid for that. We applied to the grant and got it refused. What we're now finding is that the CLT network and also the Wessex Beauty Trust, which we're all there, are now saying that because Southam's have such a large pot, they're unable to help us in actually the advice and the help, because Southam's refused to tie in with Wessex and use them as a support network. So we're now between a rock and a hard place. It's not just about funding, it's also about the support.
Did you find that you could get? Did you get money off CAF then? CAF, the Charity Aid Foundation.
No, so we went back to the CLT network and got our stage 2 funding,
3,500.
which is which is up to 3,500. And we also managed to pre-apply for the stage 3 funding, which gave us £500 to incorporate. So we got that money that way, but it's not the money so much for us at the moment, it's the advice and the help. We've also got land and we're getting that looked at, but we need help with that. And it's more if any other CLT that come across this, or actually the CLT network in Wessex now withdrawing help because of this funding money. So it's hitting us the other
Not
way.
found international sending me there. They've always sounded you very supportive
They
and
have
they're
to us as
continuing to
well.
be at the moment.
Yeah.
So.
No, they have to us up to this point, but they're now saying, actually, guys, you've got all this money, you need to be approaching.
Because we're sort of beyond where you are, that's probably why we've not seen it.
Yeah. Are you looking at a Wessex type? Sorry, Wessex Community Asset Support are an organisation that liaise with CLTs and housing associations to deliver affordable housing through a developer-led project. So not a self-build, not a custom build, possibly custom finished to a point. So whereabouts are you looking at a self-build thing, or are you looking at developer-led?
For us, self-build doesn't work. So we've tied up with CoFab, Cup Road at the moment, because of their credentials.
Yeah.
And we're looking to build 15 houses. So we've been given the land for free.
So it would be a housing association
So
you're looking to?
No, so we'll set ourselves up as a community land trust, take over the community land trust, the CLT will own the land, and then we will have the houses built by CoFab. We're looking at that at the moment, but that would be an affordable price for the people I've got in our group. We've got 20 adults and 5 kids. And we also have this opportunity of building additional houses to sell at open market value. For us in the village, most of our group come from the under 55s. The over 55s and retired people had council housing within our village and foreclosed. But we do have people within very large properties on their own. They feel isolated, they want to be part of the community and can't see a way into that. So we can house those people within our community, but obviously they can afford to pay full market value, and we'll use the money from those properties to pay for the infrastructure. So that's our model.
Do you have established relationships with the council, the parish council?
We do. So the parish council and neighbourhood plan group, we've been on board from the start. We're a subsection of the neighbourhood plan group, so that's kind of rooted in. And our need, it actually mirrors the housing survey that was done in the village 2 years ago, so we've done a match with them this wise. Parish council is very supportive. We're using them at the moment because of South House basically said to us, I've put in my expenses for printing and advertising, etc. for this fund, £100. They said we can't pay you because you don't have a bank account.